What's up, fam? Elijah Scheidler here. Welcome back to another episode of EXTOL WE. And this week, Ava, Tori are my extras, and I am the ordinary. The videos that went live this last week were Legacy's Growing Momentum, connected 3.5 years ago in the past to a video called Maturity, Perseverance's Fruit. And I am so excited to be able to roll out the new intro graphic for Extol We, built off of Extraordinary Life with Elijah, but now the expression of extraordinary life with everyone. Now, as you can see in the video from so long ago when I did the reveal for Extraordinary Life with Elijah, I'd spent time with Jesus in the secret place, scribbling on a paper with a pencil and praying and just doodling with the Father, coming up with the graphic for Extraordinary Life with Elijah. Now, as I breathed that out, and my friend Tori at that time, as she looked at it, she said, "I see what you did there," and pulled the most wild thing ever. It's been one of the most favorite signs and wonders that God has ever coordinated in my life, that I've ever gotten to be a part of, that God took something that was of mine, that it was birthed in and through me within God, yes, but that then as it moved across the gap to my friend Tori, that it came back to me as something that was so holy and wholly different. I was like, Chuck, mine, I'm going to just toss that out. I'm not going with my plan anymore. Tori, this is what I'm going with. This is now the expression of Extraordinary Life with Elijah. It's so beautiful then to see how that pairs up with this expression of Legacy's Growing Momentum. That as we press forward intentionally with the Father, doing things on purpose, with a purpose, being led by his heart, that there is a growing momentum in a legacy of faith's fullness. Faithfulness is the consistent actions of faith over time that leads to its fullness, the fullness of its fruit. Within that, then, maturity, perseverance's fruit. That it was then so incredibly beautiful to see how this expression, Legacy's Growing Momentum, prophetically established 3.5 years ago in the past, that as it was going live, that the very next day, then Monday, that I got to then have a wonderful conversation with my family, Ava, about some of the things that God's doing in her life, leading her forward into new expressions as she's moving out of her parents' house and into the destiny that God has for her. As we start talking about some of the things that she was needing input on, that it's like, we'll get to that. Let's engage what the Lord is doing in your life, my friend. And as she started then speaking about the things that God was leading her through, as she started to speak out of how Moses and Aaron in their dynamical relationship together started birthing the expression of the kingdom and God's works among his people in a covenant context. That she said this is a new reality that God is growing in her, leading her through this reality of like covenant commitment. That's not, covenant isn't just for a man and a woman in a relationship together as a married couple, but that's just this expression of a covenant people where destinies are being interwound together, and you're giving the fullness of yourself to someone else and their destiny to activate that. And it was just working through those things and telling me about them. And friends, our Father, he is so incredibly good. As in the night on April 8th, 2026, in the night, in the dream, that the Father gave me 8 words: prioritized presence authorizes intimate invitation of God's glory. Out of that the Father was speaking those things to me out of Exodus 33. So as Ava is talking about how God had a destiny and a calling on Moses' life, but that then he went and found Aaron, called Aaron out, said, "Aaron, I'm going to be as God to you, and you are going to be my prophet." Mind-blowing spiritual principles that all of this is flowing in Ava as God is speaking to me about these things out of Exodus 33. In this context, that is Moses is speaking with God, and God has said, "I am going to lead you into the promised land because I'm a faithful God. When you are faithless, I will remain faithful because I cannot deny my nature. And so I'm going to fulfill my promises to you, but I'm going to send my angel ahead of you to drive the giants out of the land. But I myself am not going to go with you, but have fun in the promised land. Now, friends, oh my goodness. Moses steps in and says, do not do that. I prioritize your presence. Unless your presence goes with us, do not send us into the promised land. How will any of the nations surrounding us know that you are pleased with us unless your presence goes with us? Now, as we've looked at in other videos, that in the promised land, when the children of Israel got there, that there were 7 nations in the promised land whose sins had reached their zenith. But that when the spies went in to spy out the land, that it was full of milk and honey, that it was a prosperous land, that there were vineyards and mass produce coming out that was supernaturally successful and glorious. And it was already present, being presided over by 7 nations whose sins had reached their zenith. Okay. Was God pleased in those nations? No. That's why it sent his people to drive them from the land. So if we take the land, we displace the giants, and we replace them with God's people, nothing has changed about the situation of declaring God's favor and pleasure in that place. And so Moses rightly assesses, unless your presence goes with us, do not send us into the land. How will anyone know that you're pleased with us unless your presence abides with your people? This has absolutely rocked my world, that a man with an anointing from God nullified the promise of God for a people by himself as being a person who prioritized the presence of God. Massive, my friends, massive. That out of that then blessing came to a people as a result of that prioritization as well. Within these dynamics of Tori speaking into the graphic that I had developed, and that it was better. And in this context of Ava speaking into the things that God is doing and growing a legacy of momentum in faith's fullness, that they begin to dovetail then in the expression of what God is doing in and through me in extraordinary life with Elijah, moving towards Sunday, February 14th, 2027, and a united night of worship. 6+ years ago, God has given me the vision and the promise that my reward of 7 years of faithful ministry before him is going to be a night of worship in his presence with his people. It's just off the chain. That has been my reward all along. But that as I've spoke with God about the night, that he's told me, Elijah, you're not going to be telling who is going to be on the worship team. You're not going to be directing who the MC is. You're not going to be directing what is said, not said, who's going to be involved, the colors, anything like that. I'm just calling you to lead my people to that place, that you provide a way for them into it, that you're going to pay for the whole night. You're going to support, you're going to be the supporter who funds the entire night. But Elijah, it's going to be better by you not doing all of the details. You're going to step out of the way. You're going to come up with the graphic, but there's going to be someone else who's going to supersede you. You're going to get revelation and insight from me, and you're going to walk forward in building a momentum, growing momentum. But guess what? It's not going to be you who's going to be doing the work. Out of this process that God has consistently been doing this pattern in my life, and that Ava is the newest expression together with Tori in saying, as you prioritize the presence of God, that it will authorize an intimate invitation of God's glory. Friends, as you look at the person of Moses, that he prioritized the presence of God. That it says that he would go to the tent of meeting and that he would speak with God face to face and then come out to enact his will. That Joshua, son of Nun, so loved the presence of God that says that he would stay in the tent of meeting and he would never leave. They were people who prioritized the presence, and that out of this context of being a friend of God, that then Moses then was given the authority, the freedom to ask of God, intimate invitation, an intimate initiation of the revelation of God's glory. He said, you've been saying, I know you, and that you're to lead these people, but I don't know you or your name. Now show me your glory. Now within that, it says that God caused all of his goodness to pass in front of Moses. But the principle that I extract is that God's glory is manifest as he causes all of his goodness to pass in front of his people in a way that declares his identity. Moses makes this very intimate request of God, and that God places Moses in the cleft of the rock. And that as our lives are placed in Jesus, the rock of ages, and that his hand covers us, that his presence of his hand upon our lives acts as a shield that safeguards and protects us to be able to look upon the glory of God revealed in all of his goodness passing before us. But that in that context, that it says, we who with unveiled faces, just as Moses was, that we who with unveiled faces behold the glory of God as looking into a mirror. When you look into a mirror, if anything is looking back out of you other than your own reflection, then it's not a mirror. It's something totally different, but it's not a mirror. Mirrors reflect the image of the person looking into the mirror. And so if we look into the glory of God as in a mirror, what it's saying is that the identity of God is reflecting, it's radiating to us who we are, which is to be like him. And so in this context then, that we have an inherent inheritance from him, that we have the capacity to breathe him back to him as himself. And so the request of Moses in Exodus 33, it says, if I have found favor in your sight, show me your ways that I may show you your ways back to you, to continue to find favor with you, to know you more. Now, the word that he uses there in the Hebrew is yada, and that we run clear back to the very beginning of time in Genesis. And it says that Adam yadad his wife Eve, and she bore him a son. And so there's this expression of the impartation of one to submit and to surrender under the authority of one over them, to receive their authorability into themselves, to activate the latent capacity within them to become proactive responsibility to multiply what they received from their authority. It's so beautiful to see how God is revealing his ways in covenant intimacy as man imparted his authorability to woman, and she received it, that then as she grew it within herself, that she handed back a multiplied expression of what she received from her husband, so far beyond what he handed her. She handed him back a sentient child that he then had responsibility to raise up in the way that it should go. And so within that, as I apply that to what Tori has done in my life, that as I release this expression of the graphics of Extraordinary Life with Elijah from the Lord, that I drew it over like a 3-4 month period, just over and over and over. Throw that piece of paper away, refine, throw it away, refine. And I finally revealed that as I released that from my authorability in God, that then Tori pulled that into herself. She acknowledged it. Proverbs 3, it says, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. That word acknowledge is yada. She acknowledged what the Lord was doing in me and said, wow, Elijah, I see what he's doing in your life. Look at this. And she handed back something to me that was so much larger, that it was so much better than what I had handed to her, that I'm like, throw away my creation. What in the world? We're going to go with this. And that I then took what she handed to me and said, I am going to now steward this in the way that it should go. Likewise, that as I had the revelation from God in the night of prioritized presence authorizes intimate invitation of God's glory, that Ava comes along and says, wow, look what God's teaching me. I'm like, man, that's real good. Thank you for growing what God has shown me. And now I'm going to steward this forward in the way that it should go. It's building a legacy of momentum in me, of the fruit of perseverance that is maturity, completeness, and wholeness, with a lack for nothing. That blessed is the man who perseveres, for when he has withstood the test, he will receive the crown of life. He will receive the gift of ruling together with Christ in life as being one who has loved God. That God is working into me then the faith, the authority, the freedom, and the vision to steward forward the worship night for Sunday, February 14th, 2027, and not to have any involvement with it at all. Friends, as God has spoken to me for years and years now about the worship night, that is to be my reward of 7 years of labor to throw a party, to go into the city, to get the place ready for Jesus and the Father and the Holy Spirit to spend intimate time with their people that they've longed to share together with them. Like John 13, long have I desired to share this feast with you. I get to be the one who goes ahead to prepare the space and make sure that everything is laid out and ready. That it's my reward of 7 years of labor. But the Lord has said, Elijah, you're not going to have anything to do with who's picked for the worship team, who's going to be speaking, what they're going to say, what the night is going to look like moving forward. And you're not going to be on stage, man. This is what I've given you to do. And as you push the vision forward and invite people to come and to be with you and what God has given me to do, hey, look at what God has called me to do. What do you think about that? And that other people breathe that into themselves and say, we like that. We see what God's doing. And they breathe it back to me. Oh, my dear word. It's not going to be anything of what I thought it's going to be. It's going to be infinitely better. But that all along, that God has been growing a legacy of momentum in me, his son. That he's been working maturity in me, the fruit of perseverance in making video after video after video after video after video for years in secret, and just persevering through adversity, that he is working into the inherent inheritance of his identity in me, that as I prioritize his presence, that he is authorizing me to invite an intimate expression of the movements of all of his goodness passing before his people, that we may, in the cleft of Jesus' hands, in his presence by the Spirit, partake in the manifest glory of our Father, declaring his identity to his children. So if you subscribe to what we are doing, at least myself, Tori, and Ava, if you subscribe to what we are doing, then hit the button, hit it, and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. I am a content creator. And if you love this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. Pray blessings on all of our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I will see you in the next video.